The first Belizeans to get the vaccine, you'll see them tonight. And will PM Bersenio apologize to trade unionist Jackie Willoughby for telling her to shut up? You'll hear his answer tonight. Also, what did the judge say about the UDP's election challenge to Bernard Wagner? Will Bernard be on the ballot? We'll hear what the judge said. Plus, a mother who's lost 3 sons to gang violence prepares to bury another. We've got details of these and other stories in our newscast for tonight, Monday, March 1st, 2021. Good evening. With your news, I'm Indra Craig.
Are you talented? Are you one of the many Belizeans with limited talent? Are you talented enough to vote? On March 3rd, show them how truly unlimited your talent is. Vote.
The new Atlantic Bank chip and contactless cards reflect your payment needs. All Visa cards now include an embedded chip that generates a unique security code each time you perform a transaction, making it virtually impossible to copy your card. Use your card anywhere the Visa logo is displayed by either performing a contactless payment or a chip card payment. These new cards offer more security, acceptance, and convenience wherever you pay, giving you the peace of mind you need to enjoy life's special moments. Atlantic Bank chip and contactless cards. One card, 2 ways to pay.
Atlantic Bank, building the future together.
Belizeans, 100 days is enough time to see and feel what the government's priorities are and what it means to you, the people. Among this government's first actions within 100 days were the firing of close to 1,000 workers at various levels.
It's a pity that the small people had to go because my people are expecting me to provide for them.
And the hiring of more than 100 family members of PUP ministers and politicians in lucrative positions paid for with public finances.
Belize is a small society. We have limited talent.
It cancelled food pantry, unemployment relief, and education assistance for thousands of struggling Belizeans.
Certainly everybody can get.
Meanwhile, it quickly approved the buyout of a bank by Mike Ashcroft Interests, was about to approve for him an environmentally destructive project, which it pulled back only because of unbearable pressure from local and international conservationists. And it rammed a motion through the Senate, paving the way to settle almost $500 million in international arbitral awards to Ashcroft companies.
This has nothing to do with Michael Ashcroft, please, man.
Meanwhile, fuel prices are steadily increasing, and the government refuses to reduce the taxes to ease the burden.
Government can and should immediately reduce the tax on all fuel.
If you had any doubt what this PUP Bersenio government's true agenda is, you have seen it clearly and conclusively in its first 100 days. On March 3rd, those of you in our towns and cities countrywide have an opportunity to register your strong disapproval and tell the government it must change course.
But people are saying across this country that they regretted voting for the People's United Party and that on March 3rd they will send that first signal.
You do so by voting in these municipal elections countrywide and the by-election in Corozal Bay for candidates of the United Democratic Party, the party that is truly committed to putting the people first.
On Wednesday, 3rd March 2021, voters of the 9 municipalities will have an opportunity to elect the members to constitute their councils. On your ballot, it is your decision and choice. Exercise it. Be assured that the COVID-19 protocols will be in place for your safe voting. Let your decision be your choice. Voters must properly wear their face mask or other face, nose, and mouth covering, maintain consistent 6 feet social distancing, and sanitize hands before entering the polling station. Having entered the polling station, the voter shows his voter identification card and announces his name in an audible voice. All voters will be required to temporarily remove their face mask or nose and mouth covering for the purpose of verifying the facial identity of the voter. The first poll clerk verifies the particular of the voter on the voters list, while the second poll clerk verifies the particulars in the binder. The voter's name is then ruled off the voters list. The voter is then required to show his right index finger to ensure that he has not yet voted. The voter's right index finger is then sanitized. Allow finger to dry for 5 seconds before dipping it up to the first joint in the indelible ink. The voter is then directed to the presiding officer, who then initials a ballot paper and issues it to the voter, along with a sanitized pencil. The voter then proceeds to the polling booth and marks a cross on the right-hand side of the ballot, opposite the name of the candidates of his choice. With the ballot paper folded to conceal the vote, the voter shows the presiding officer her initials, places the ballot paper inside the ballot box, and then places the pencil in the container for used pencil for resanitization. The voter then exits the polling station. Remember, you are permitted to vote in Belize City for 1 mayor and 10 councillors. In Belmopan City and Towns, for 1 mayor and 6 councillors. Disabled, elderly, and pregnant women will be given priority. Electors are encouraged to take along their voter identification card to their polling station to facilitate the process. Your ballot paper will be considered void if it does not have the presiding officer's initials, if the voter has voted for more candidates than there are seats, if the ballot paper is not marked for any candidate, if the ballot paper contains any mark that can identify the voter, and if the ballot paper is unmarked or void for uncertainty. Let your decision be your choice. Always remember to follow all COVID-19 protocols to keep safe. A message brought to you by the Elections and Boundaries Department.
Power corrupts. And absolute power corrupts. Absolutely. On March 3rd, vote.
On Wednesday morning at 6, tune in to Channel 7 and Creme Radio and Television for Back to the Ballot. Our teams will bring the coverage from the field to your living room, from Corozal to Punta Gorda, San Pedro to Benque. Channel 7 and Creme, along with our partners, Plus TV, PGTV, and CTV3, have got you covered as Belize goes back to the ballots.
Belize took a giant leap in the fight against COVID as the first citizens were vaccinated today. 3 healthcare workers led the charge and received their first dose, confidently headed back into society knowing that they are safer than they were only a few minutes before. The vaccinations happened at a Ministry of Health press conference in Belize City this morning where the media witnessed the process firsthand. Courtney Menzies has a recap of this historic event.
Today marks a very important milestone in this fight against COVID.
This country is indebted to all the frontline workers So I want to tell them on behalf of this government and on behalf of people of Belize, to all healthcare workers, thank you so much for the work that you have done.
And that gratitude was demonstrated today when 3 healthcare workers made history as the first Belizeans to get vaccinated against COVID-19. Nurse Casilda Brown and Dr. Eric Bradley, both from the COVID-19 unit, along with public health specialist Dr. Marcela Koye, received their first dose of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine today, live in front of the entire country. And this is just the start, as Minister of Health Michelle Shabat explained that more vaccines are on their way.
It has been a challenge to obtain these vaccines, but I must repeat that I am extremely happy to announce the arrival of this first amount of vaccines for our people. Furthermore, we have now gotten confirmation from the COVAX facility that we have been allocated our first batch of vaccines, which is 100,800 doses. These will be in country by the end of the first quarter of this year. This means that with the first 1,000 doses we receive from Barbados, we will be able to vaccinate 1,000 of our frontline healthcare workers with their first dose. And when we receive our first allocation from COVAX, we will be able to administer the second dose to these 1,000 frontline healthcare workers.
The Prime Minister estimated that over 60,000 Belizeans will be able to get vaccinated in the upcoming months.
We have the teachers as the first group in the category, and the second category. And from the numbers that we're getting, it seems that we'll be able to get the teachers vaccinated rather quickly, since we're getting 100,800 vaccines right now from the COVAX facilities. We got 1,000 from the people of Barbados. We just made an announcement that India has now said that they're sending to Belize 25,000 vaccines, and it should be here by Saturday. So when you add all of those numbers, you are looking at probably over 60,000 people that are going to get vaccinated immediately with what we have coming to Belize.
And included in that first amount are healthcare workers, persons ages 60 and over, and those with special conditions. In Phase 2, there are teachers, police officers, members of the judiciary, customs and immigration, and those in the tourism sector. Phase 3 includes BDF, Coast Guard, and Fire Service, those with comorbidities, Red Cross, and utility workers. Phase 4 is all other public servants and transportation workers, while Phase 5 are those ages 18 to 59 years old. The PM said that once herd immunity is obtained, it will be one step closer to normalcy.
I encourage everybody, encourage your family, encourage your friends, especially our elderly, to take this vaccine. It is for their own good, for their own protection. We need to get Belize working once again. You know, we've been learning how to live with COVID-19, but until we can get to what you call the herd immunity, we can then be able to move more freely and to be able to get the economy going.
And for those who are unsure of the safety of vaccines, Lilia Thurton from the National Immunization Advisory Group explained why they are necessary, while Dr. Natalia Baer from MOHW spoke about the common side effects.
The key message from NITAG is that vaccines are safe. To date, over 241 million doses of COVID vaccines have been administered across 103 countries. The purpose of the vaccine is to help individuals develop antibodies to fight against SARS-CoV-2, to provide some level of protection to those who cannot receive the vaccine at this time, to reduce the spread of the disease in our communities, reduce the death rate associated with COVID-19, and of course, to reduce the burden on our healthcare system.
No COVID-19 related hospital admissions occurred in persons vaccinated, and this is coming out of the different reports from the different trial phases. for the vaccine. The side effects are common like with other vaccine, redness and pain and the site of injection. And there is also some malaise, arthralgia, flu-like symptoms, but this lasts no more than 2 days.
And while it is a step in the right direction, it is certainly not cheap. But Dr. Beer explained where the country is getting the finances to procure the vaccines.
It's about $4 million US. And if you all recall, in the previous press conference and presentations that we have done publicly, there is a reformulated operations that we are working with the IDB, and that will cover the cost of the first half of the vaccines that are needed to reach to that 58% of the total population. And definitely we are looking at the avenue to secure the rest of the vaccines that we need to procure.
That avenue is called begging or borrowing.
There's only 2 ways that we can address the issue of getting the vaccines. One is donations, and secondly is by borrowing money. And so that's what we're doing at this time. I wrote a letter to Prime Minister Modi on the 5th of February asking for a larger donation. And what they have done is that they said that very quickly they can give us 25,000. And we hope that we'll be able to get more in the not probably in the not too distant future. So we will be trying to get some more donations where we can. But we've been talking to the IDB, we've been talking to CABE, these lending agencies that would be able to lend us the money to be able to pay for these vaccines.
Courtney Menzies, 7 News.
According to Dr. Beer, there are 242,907 adults eligible to take the vaccine in Belize. The vaccine has not been approved for persons under 18. And while healthcare workers were the first to get the jab in Belize, in other countries it has been the head of government or the head of state. But Belize's head of government, who has gotten and recovered from COVID, says he will put other more deserving persons in front of him.
As Prime Minister, when my turn comes, I will get vaccinated, but I prefer others to go before me. I was just mentioning to the Minister, to Minister Shebat, just on Saturday I took an antigen test, and it showed that I have my antibodies are very high. So it would be best that somebody take my turn, because I don't think I need it at this time.
The members of the National Assembly and the Judiciary will receive vaccinations in Phase 2 of the vaccine rollout. And while we would expect that all 45 parliamentarians would get it without hesitation to set an example, there are 4,000 plus teachers countrywide. And what if some or many of them refuse the vaccination? They are in Group 1, a high priority and key to the drive to reopen schools safely. The Prime Minister didn't mince his words when talking about this possibility today.
Will that teacher be asked to resign or to be removed from the system? What happens if we go along with the safely reopening of schools?
No, I don't think the teacher will be asked to resign, but then the teacher needs to be fully conscious of that bad decision. I may say something more stronger, but if they decide not to take that vaccine, but then that should not prevent then that teacher to use the excuse that they don't go teach because they don't get the vaccine. They will have to go to teach, as far as I'm concerned. We need to get the children back to school.
And while the Prime Minister was careful to guard his tongue when speaking about teachers who may have an anti-vax sentiment, he certainly didn't bite his tongue last week when he said that Unionist Jackie Willoughby should, quote, shut up. Today we asked him if he's considering taking back his hard words.
Do you wish to distance yourself from your much criticized remarks about one union leader who stood up and spoke about Dr. Manza, and you said that she should shut up?
I appreciate that that the media and Belizeans hold me as Prime Minister and my government to a higher standard, unlike the way the former Prime Minister and the present leader of the opposition and the UDP behaved. So I appreciate that on that part. Now, I think that then the best thing that I can do is that I will invite Ms. Willoughby and some of the people from the senior the senior members of the public service, a few of them. After the municipal elections, I will sit down with them. We could drink some coffee and let them tell me what are their issues and try to see how best we could solve it.
So you don't apologize?
I'm sorry?
Will you apologize at that forum?
As I said, I am happy that you're holding me to a higher standard, and I'm prepared to meet with them. But my question has been, where have they been all this time?
And when he does sit with the unions, especially the Association of Public Service Senior Managers, one of the subjects that is likely to come up is the attempt to demote Dr. Marvin Manzanero. Briceño has a unique first-hand perspective on Manzanero because when he co-chaired the National COVID Oversight Committee, Dr. Marvin Manzanero was one of the key elements in that committee. And when Briceño stepped down in June, he expressed no ill will towards him. But today he characterized Manzanero and his team as, quote, stabbing in the dark. So, what changed? We asked the PM today.
And like that, you know, there are people in my constituency where the father died one night and the son died the following morning. So it's something that really scared the heck out of everyone in the Orange Walk district.
So you said that you were seeing people die around you. At that time, you were on the National Advisory Task Force. And you left in July, I believe. You had a press conference at your office. But did you feel then that Dr. Manzanero was spinning wheels? And if you did feel that, why didn't you express it at that time? Instead, you expressed thanks to everyone.
Jules, you know the answer to that question because I had told you way back my concerns about what was happening in the Ministry of Health. You know that. So why are you asking a question when you know the answer?
It was on the public record, sir.
Thank you, Jules. You'll have another opportunity
just let me finish to answer, Jules. I was expressing my concerns from early, and I did express it to the Prime Minister back then. But I don't think it was for me to be able to say it publicly because I did not want to cause panic. I think I had to act responsibly.
And while Briceño says he was acting responsibly, the Ministry of Health and Wellness has suggested that Dr. Manzanero was acting irresponsibly when he did not accept an offer from Baja to assist with processing COVID tests. There has been some dispute about whether that offer was really put on the table, since others in the task force at the time say they don't recall it. Well, Minister Shabat says he has seen the email with the offer.
The offer was made from Baja, and I believe the email I saw was directly to Dr. Manzanero.
And that is the reason why you're blaming him for...
We're not blaming. I think that's a misconception. We're not blaming anybody. This is an investigation that we've launched, and we're still in the process of that investigation, and Dr. Manzanero will be given an opportunity to state his position before there's any blame or before there's any assessment of the situation. That's the process. I know that the minute we saw the email, we acted immediately to bring Baja on board. As you know, Marisol, when we took over office, we had over 3,000 PCRs waiting to be tested. And we had people waiting somewhere between 21 to 30 days for a test result, which was just unacceptable. And so we acted with haste. We saw the urgency of it. We saw what could have happened if, in fact, that offer had been taken up earlier. And so we acted with haste.
And acting with haste meant assigning Dr. Melissa Diaz, who is the deputy manager of the Central Region, to acting DHS when Dr. Marvin Manzanero went on sick leave. And now that her 3-month transfer to that post is up and she has returned to her substantive post, the unfortunate part is that 2 medical professionals, both with stellar records, are unwittingly being pitted against each other. Shabat lamented this today.
It is unfortunate that what has happened here is that there have been two characters cast one against the other, and we're now using a last name to crucify an individual, which is unfair. What happened is this: when we got into the ministry, we saw the spiraling number of positive COVID cases, and we knew that we had to go in a different direction. We saw what had been done, and we did not feel that the new direction could be headed by the people who were there at the time. We looked in the wider public for somebody who had experience on the forefront of the battle, and we found that person in Dr. Diaz. And I'll tell you something, I reached out to Dr. Diaz personally and asked her to come on board because of her experience and because of the respect that the medical community has for her. And I'll tell you what, I have no regret in doing that. The numbers bear out for themselves, and the protocols that she has put into place is what has us at this point today.
But in terms of the allegations that are being made by the unions, or the arguments rather, let's not say allegations, they're saying you are not following due process. The public service regulations are there, they stipulate certain things, and this government has certainly not followed that.
Well, I would beg to differ. Everything we have done up to date is by advice we've gotten from the Ministry of the Public Service as well as from the Attorney General's ministry.
And then you believe that that would stand in court?
Obviously, I believe it would stand in court.
Sir, you all have quoted yourself into an invidious position insofar as the same deputy DHS who was leapfrogged for the appointment, very effective appointment of Dr. Diaz. Now that same deputy DHS has been called upon to be the DHS or the acting DHS or to act in the role. I heard you refer to a deputy DHS in one of your interviews.
I did. So what we have at the ministry is a group of people working together. We have moved away from one individual who controlled every single thing at the ministry to a group of people working together. And that is what we have at the ministry.
But at the end of the day, sir, you can't have all Indians and no chief. There has to be a head of department.
Yes, certain of the duties of the Director of Health Services have been assigned to the current Deputy Director and to other managers at the Ministry of Health.
But in the meantime, you won't seek another person to actually fill the position of DHS. You will continue discussions with Dr. Manzanero?
To do what? I just want to understand your question.
So the first part was whether you will try to find someone to fill the DHS position, since you obviously don't want Manzanero there.
Obviously, that is a position that will be filled in time.
It will be filled, but not with Dr. Marvin Manzanero. No way, no how under a PUP administration. He returns from administrative leave tomorrow, and Shabat says he faces two choices.
Dr. Manzanero has been given several options, and it is for him to decide which option he wants. Whichever option he decides to go with, he will have his full salary. He will have all of the benefits that he enjoyed as Director of Health Services.
Does he come back to work then on Wednesday with one of those options, you know, in terms of position, or does he then go on an extended
Well,
leave?
there is a process. There is a process, and the process must be followed through. Dr. Manzanero knows very well what the options are before him, and so it is a matter for him to determine what he's going to do.
The posts Manzanero have been offered are both equivalent to demotions, one as a medical officer, the other as director of the TB and HIV program, which is where he entered the public service in 2006. And Dr. Manzanero isn't the only persona non grata coming back to the Ministry of Health and Wellness in Belmopan this week. The former Minister, Pablo Marin's wife, Danini Contreras Marin, who has the head of the Drug Inspectorate, was transferred to the Central Medical Stores facility shortly after the PUP won. Dr. Russell Manzanero was an epidemiologist and was transferred from the epidemiology unit to the Central Medical Lab, also for 3 months. That time is up, so we asked the minister what's next for them.
Will you all put her on another 3-month transfer? I know those are in...
Listen, I want to say this very clearly. At the Ministry of Health and Wellness, we need to place our people where we best need them and where they can best serve the public. And so that goes for everybody in the ministry, hands down. And that's all I'm going to say on that matter.
Dr. Russell Manzanero.
What is the case with him? He's temporarily posted at the Central Medical Lab where we feel he's most effective at the time.
But you all have no head for the epidemiology unit.
Thank you all very much. Ms. Lerna Perez is doing an excellent job there.
And later on, we'll have more from health as we query two big contracts coming out of that ministry that both the Prime Minister and the Minister of Health seems clueless about. But we take a break now, so when we come back, a mother who has lost 3 sons to gun violence gets ready to bury another. Don't go away.
We all know the importance of running water and proper drainage in your home. That's why we rely on a fully functional plumbing system. At Benny's, we have all the plumbing supplies and accessories you need. Our pipes, fittings, valves, and adapters are made from durable quality materials. Remember to wash your hands with clean running water from your faucet. We have kitchen and bathroom faucets in various styles and finishes. Whether for installation or maintenance, make sure to use recommended PVC cleaner, solvent, and Teflon tape to fix or prevent leaks. We also have the tools to get the job done. For all your residential, commercial, or industrial plumbing needs, shop at Benny's. Quality and savings.
Power corrupts. And absolute power corrupts. Absolutely. On March 3rd, vote.
The new Atlantic Bank chip and contactless cards reflect your payment needs. All Visa cards now include an embedded chip that generates a unique security code each time you perform a transaction, making it virtually impossible to copy your card. Use your card anywhere the Visa logo is displayed by either performing a contactless payment or a chip card payment. These new cards offer more security, acceptance, and convenience wherever you pay, giving you the peace of mind you need to enjoy life's special moments. Atlantic Bank chip and contactless cards. One card, 2 ways to pay.
Atlantic Bank, building the future together.
Belmopan, no better time than now. I am Ralston Fraser, Fraze for Mayor. I address you as your independent mayoral candidate with extensive experience. I have served you as councillor, as deputy mayor, as city administrator. As your mayor, I will stand with you. I will stand for you. I will not be pawn to any. On March 3rd, next week Wednesday, you can choose the good candidate. You can choose the better candidate. Or you can choose simply the best candidate to work with you. The power of history is in your pen. At the very bottom of your ballot paper, choose Ralston Fraser. Fraze for mayor. Simply the best candidate. No better time than now to be the change you seek. Thank you.
Belizeans, 100 days is enough time to see and feel what a government's priorities are and what it means to you, the people. Among this government's first actions within 100 days were the firing of close to 1,000 workers at various levels.
It's a pity that the small people have to go because my people are expecting me to provide for them.
And the hiring of more than 100 family members of PUP ministers and politicians in lucrative positions paid for with public finances.
Belize is a small society. We have limited talent.
It cancelled food pantry, unemployment relief, and education assistance for thousands of struggling Belizeans.
Certainly everybody can get.
Meanwhile, it quickly approved the buyout of a bank by Mike Ashcroft Interests, was about to approve for him an environmentally destructive project, which it pulled back only because of unbearable pressure from local and international conservationists. And it rammed a motion through the Senate paving the way to settle almost 500 million in international arbitral awards to Ashcroft companies.
This has nothing to do with Michael Ashcroft, please, man.
Meanwhile, fuel prices are steadily increasing and the government refuses to reduce the taxes to ease the burden.
Government can and should immediately reduce the tax on all fuel.
If you had any doubt what this PUP-Briceño government's true agenda is, you have seen it clearly and conclusively in its first 100 days. On March 3rd, those of you in our towns and cities countrywide have an opportunity to register your strong disapproval and tell the government it must change course.
But people are saying across this country that they regretted voting for the People's United Party and that on March 3rd they will send that first signal.
You do so by voting in these municipal elections countrywide and the by-election in Corozal Bay for candidates of the United Democratic Party, the party that is truly committed to putting the people first.
Kite flying is fun, but it can also be dangerous. Fly kites safely by following these tips. Never use wire, metallic thread, or wire-reinforced strings. You could be electrocuted. Remember, even a safely built kite can cause a power outage if it gets caught in a power line. Always use paper, plastic, or wood to build kites. Never fly kites near power lines, in the path of traffic, aircrafts, or near highways. Always fly kites with a responsible adult in open areas, in dry weather, and with clear visibility. Never attempt to remove your kite from a power line. Always call BEL at 0800-235-2273 if your kite gets caught in a power line. Belize Electricity Limited. We care about your safety.
Are you talented? Are you one of the many Belizeans with limited talent? Are you talented enough to vote? On March 3rd, show them how truly unlimited your talent is. Vote.
On Wednesday morning at 6, tune in to Channel 7 and Creme Radio and Television for Back to the Ballot. Our teams will bring the coverage from the field to your living room, from Corozal to Punta Gorda, San Pedro to Benque. Channel 7 and Creme, along with our partners, Plus TV, PGTV, and CTV3, have got you covered as Belize goes back to the ballots.
Another Wallace brother has met a tragic end at the end of a gun barrel. This time, 32-year-old Philip Wallace follows siblings Michael, Andrew, and Charles to an early grave. It's more tragedy than any mother should rightly have to bear. And this morning, when Cherise Halsal sought out Irene Wallace, the mother of all four men, she spoke with unimaginable strength and bold, but also a desire for retribution. Here's that story.
This sunlit, shadowless Crawl Road alley was a crime scene on Friday night, the place where 32-year-old Philip Wallace took his last stand. It's an end that caught Philip off guard. He'd spent the first part of the night at his mother's house, and then he ducked out in a joyous mood on a quick weed run.
Philip was here Friday evening, right, because he was talking to me, and then he said he went out, right? And I said, okay. And he went behind a young lady, you know, giving jokes and things. That's from my understanding. But then the next thing, he never did come back. Up to now, and then I guess reality have to step in for me. They got a lot of theory. But one main theory that somebody from the neighborhood, somebody had a misunderstanding and thing. And then, well, I guess Philip never knew about it. And then he went, from what the guys tell me, that he went to purchase weed, right? Because around the neighborhood never have none. Right? So he went to purchase weed, and the next thing you know, they just shot him.
The cops say while the Wallaces were blissfully unaware, someone had plotted Philip's death.
Information is that he was at an alley on Coral Road when he was approached by 3 male persons who fired shots towards him. An investigation is being conducted and we are seeking 3 suspects in regards to this shooting.
It's hard and it's rough, but I have medical problems, so I try to keep calm, right? Because the guy killed my son and they don't know what they do to me.
Wallace says that while she knew Philip was living a rough life, one prone to many dangers, she'd hoped that at least here in their neighborhood, he was safe.
All of me feel good in a sense that the incident where you get in November last year, so if they may kill him there, right? And I feel it so, you see? But then the people where you know, right? And then everybody in the area knew who killed my son. And then people that say, oh, well, they're not saying nothing, but then I might be hurting now, and I hurt forever because I don't bury tree and here before, right? And the thing about it, the same mothers there, they were crying, right? They were crying because there's a God above. What goes around comes around. And just like how I'm hurting, I try to be strong. Everybody say, oh, Miss Wallace so strong, but nobody know. I know they sleep and then they eat. Like catch 1 meal a day, right? Nobody know that feeling and the hurt, right? Because then like I say, which one your next one? But I want to send a strong message to all of them that are involved. I just hope they could run, right? Because run, they will have to run. And that's my message to them. And I pray, right? My picnic and me, not going to do nothing, right? And thing. But Philip will get them back. Because the chance Philip out of his life, he never deserved to dead like that. Never. You know? Never did.
Charisse Halsell, 7 News.
Philip Wallace was very well known to the police, having been accused of multiple crimes, including a November 2020 home invasion and the 2010 shooting of 7-year-old Janae Mogale. He was also charged for murder, for which he was acquitted. Last week, we told you about the UDP's challenge to Bernard Wagner's candidacy in the municipal elections, which are 2 days away. Wagner is seeking a second term as the mayor of Belize City Council. But the UDP thinks that he should be disqualified from running in the election because he lives in Los Lagos, which is outside city limits. The Belize City Council Act says, quote, no person shall be eligible for election as a member of the council who has not ordinarily resided in Belize City for at least 1 year immediately preceding the date of the election, end quote. The litigants, Michael Perifete and Melbourne Wade Jr., have filed an election petition in an attempt to get him disqualified. This afternoon, Justice Sonia Young presided over the first virtual hearing on this matter, and she heard from Orson O.J. Elrington, who is representing the UDP. Before the matter could begin in earnest, Senior Counsel Godfrey Smith and Hector Guerra raised formal complaints before the court that their client, Bernard Wagner, and Chief Elections Officer Josephine Tamai were not properly served with the documents for this lawsuit. He urged the court to consider his view that because of this procedural error, the UDP's case should not be entertained. Later on in the hearing, Justice Sonia Young told the litigants that according to the law, election petitions are not allowed to take place before an election has occurred. After those matters were discussed in detail, the hearing came to a close and the judge adjourned this case until April 19th. Bernard Wagner was at court to listen in on the teleconference hearing, and when the press approached him for an interview on the topic, he declined. Here's that moment right after.
Mr. Mayor, sir, let me beg you for a short interview.
Not make any comment. No. Reaction to the None at all?
No.
2 days before elections?
We also have the attorney speak on his behalf. Since it was a matter that was adjourned, we have decided not to make any comments at this time.
His attorney Hector Guerra was more forthcoming, and in a teleconference interview this evening, he discussed why the UDP's case was put on pause. Here's what he told us.
The courts are guided by very peculiar rules. The rules prescribe how election petitions are to be served. Today, the petitioners were not able to get their petition off the ground because the petitioners failed in properly effecting service of their petition on both respondents. They failed to comply with regulations 118 of the Belize City Council regulations that deal with these elections. So in failing to do so, the court felt that it could not proceed properly so.
And then, sir, we note also that the judge did share her opinion. Was it that she was explaining that maybe an election petition should not come before the election? Please explain.
Yes, as the word, as the name says, it's an election petition. Axiomatic in that is the fact that there would have had an election. There has been no election to date, and so properly speaking, there can be no election petition at this stage.
The applicants in this matter have to pay court costs for the respondents in the sum of $1,500. As we told you, the next hearing for this election petition will take place on April 19th. We'll be there to tell you what happens. Last week, we showed you the ordeal that 26-year-old Aretta Hamilton, a Belize City resident, went through with police last Tuesday night. Hamilton reportedly got caught up in a domestic dispute at her aunt's house, in which another woman attacked her with a machete. She ran onto Mahogany Street, and that's around the time when the police arrived. The cops were called in to keep the peace, but Hamilton is alleging that the responding officers treated her like the guilty party, manhandling her and allegedly clubbing her in the mouth with a gun and knocking out one of her teeth. And it was all caught on camera. The press asked the police commissioner about the case today, and here's what he had to say.
I'm not familiar with that matter, but I saw it on the news when the young lady was complaining, and she showed a picture of her tooth in her hand. And I have referred that matter to PSB, so they are looking at it. And if what she said is true, then the police will have to be held accountable.
And while the behavior of the cops is being called into question in that incident, tonight the police commissioner is commending the good police work which led to the interception of a van that was loaded with contraband goods. The van was caught this morning near the border between Mexico and the Orange Walk district. And here's what Compo shared with the media this morning.
This morning, sometime around 5 a.m., our teams along the Belize-Mexico border were on a checkpoint when a van came and the officers tried to stop the van. The van, upon seeing the officers, sped off, and they ended up in a pursuit. Eventually, the van came to a stop near a curve, and the driver was ordered out of the vehicle. And upon doing so, he picked up a machete and opened the door for the van. He was told to drop the machete. He did not do so, and the officers fired one shot which caught him in the buttocks. He is currently in the Northern Regional Hospital undergoing treatment in a stable condition. The police and custom took possession of the van, and inside the van was fully loaded with assorted contraband goods. The individual was in the company of his son. His son is also detained because his son also assaulted the police. He punched one of the police in the face, causing severe swelling. So the son will be charged for assaulting the police and custom is currently taking an inventory of the items, and they will deal with the issue of the uncustom goods.
Also this morning, Curzon police intercepted a vehicle that was carrying 2 illegal high-powered weapons and a large quantity of marijuana. Here's what the commissioner had to say about that second successful interdiction at the border.
Likewise, this morning in the Corozal district, police were on operation when they saw two individuals. Upon seeing the police, the individuals ran, leaving a vehicle behind. And the police searched the vehicle, which is a GMC pickup truck, double cab. And inside the vehicles, police found one AK-47 rifle and one M4 carbine rifle and several bales of what we believe to be Mexican high-grade weed. The police are still in the process of processing the weed, or the cannabis, and as soon as we have the exact amount of kilos and the weight, we'll be sharing that with the media.
The press also asked the commissioner to share details about an incident last night in which one of his police teams was assaulted by a mob at the Pickstock Street hutment in Belize City, which is known as Jungle. It started at around 7:40 p.m. when a support team from Police Precinct 3 was chased in a white car. They detained the driver, but it appears that residents from the Jungle became incensed and started stoning the police. The officers had to resort to firing warning shots, and one of those rubber bullets ricocheted and hit 22-year-old Joshua Flowers to the mouth and right hand. He had to be taken to the hospital for those injuries. Here's what the commissioner told the media this morning.
Last night, the police in Belize City reported that they stopped a vehicle, and upon doing so, they were approaching the vehicle when the driver of the vehicle sped off. He was pursued and eventually caught by the police. When he was caught in the area of Pickstock, as the police approached to try and conduct search of the vehicle, a mob descended on the police, and that forced the police officers to discharge some warning shots with rubber bullets. And apparently the rubber bullets ricocheted and bounced back and hit 2 persons. They were taken to the hospital, they were treated and released because the injuries was minor.
Sir, is it expected that any charges or actions will be brought against anyone from that mob that came against the police officer?
Yes, the police are working to identify those persons who are involved, and yes, charges will be brought against some of them.
Sir, what do you say to groups like that through their aggression or their discontent or whatsoever seek to stop the course of justice by intervening, I don't know, on their friends or family or relatives' behalf?
Well, Mr. Lopez, it is tough. We have a culture of interference where the minute somebody see the police doing something, they want to intervene. Well, we have no issue with persons who may want to come around and take video footage of what the police is doing. We simply ask that you maintain respect, you maintain your distance, and you allow the police to do their work. Whenever we're going to have a mob dissenting on the police to prevent the police from doing their work, then that's a different kettle of fish. And the police will always do what needs to be done to secure themselves and to ensure that they are removed from the area safely. And that's what the police officers did.
Reports are that one of the rubber bullets also injured an 11-year-old female minor who was not taken to the KHMH. And keeping it on, Police Inspector David McCoy, who is a trained attorney, is going to be charged in connection to a domestic dispute with a woman. Reports are that on Friday night, McCoy and the woman had some sort of altercation, which resulted in the female being injured with cut wounds. Here's what the commissioner had to say about that case.
That one, I don't know. The young lady who we believe is a common law of Mr. McCoy. I believe they live together. She complained that they had some misunderstanding, which resulted in him inflicting stab wound to her with a knife, as well as to have hit her physically with his hands. She was issued with medical farm and her injuries was certified as wounding. I directed that Mr. McCoy be detained and charged. So he has been charged for wounding, and he was kept, if a matter of fact, he's still in police custody right now because, as you would know, we don't normally give bail to persons who are charged with domestic violence offenses. And even though Mr. McCoy is a police, he's an inspector of police, he's no different. He's treated just as we treat any other person. And so he's in police custody and will be arraigned this morning for that matter. We try to do a lot of awareness within the department. If a matter of fact, our policy is very strict when it comes to domestic violence. And I would say to them, do as I do. The last time a woman tried to beat me, I run, and she never see me again, right? And that way she'll never be able to beat you again. Don't stand and try to fight with a woman, you run.
Reports are that Inspector McCoy is claiming that he is wrongfully accused and that he's being treated unfairly. Expats were again targeted in a home invasion this weekend, and that's just what 77-year-old Beatrice Smith and her husband had to confront in the wee hours of Sunday morning when two masked armed men invaded their Tea Kettle Village home. And we got more details about the harrowing incident from ACP Joseph Myvet.
Sometime around 2:15 a.m. on yesterday's date, whilst herself and her elderly husband, who is 81 years old, were inside their bedroom asleep, their home was entered by two armed masked individuals who demanded money, and as a result the complainants were bound with duct tape, where their home was searched and a number of items including monies were taken by those individuals. Police is investigating this matter and are following several leads, and two persons so far have since been detained pending this investigation.
The victims were bound and placed in a corner of their bedroom while the robbers searched their home. But while the attack on the Smiths was particularly brutal given their age, they weren't the only victims of a home invasion. On Friday, Marilyn Ramirez, a resident of the College area in Belize City, also experienced a brutal and frightening attack by two armed men. We got details from Superintendent Gilberto Romero.
On Friday, the 26th of February 2021, Marilyn Ramirez reported that she was at home on Antelope Street when she was approached by two male persons who were armed with firearms inside her house. They proceeded to steal some cash from her purse and stole a cellular phone. She then screamed for help, at which point the two male persons ran off with the items.
These male persons, any description, any identity has been established so far?
Yeah, we are seeking one suspect in regard to this aggravated burglary.
Romero also told us that Ramirez's attackers are residents of Belize City. After the break, we'll tell you about those big contracts coming out of the Ministry of Health that had the Prime Minister and the Minister of Health and Wellness stumped. And tourism under the PUP looks back at the challenges and accomplishments of its first 100 days. Don't go away.
Are you one of the many Belizeans with limited talent? Are you talented enough to vote? On March 3rd, show them how truly unlimited your talent is. Vote.
The new Atlantic Bank chip and contactless cards reflect your payment needs. All Visa cards now include an embedded chip that generates a unique security code each time you perform a transaction, making it virtually impossible to copy your card. Use your card anywhere the Visa logo is displayed by either performing a contactless payment or a chip card payment. These new cards offer more security, acceptance, and convenience wherever you pay, giving you the peace of mind you need to enjoy life's special moments. Atlantic Bank chip and contactless cards. One card, two 2 ways to pay.
Atlantic Bank, building the future together.
Kite flying is fun, but it can also be dangerous. Fly kites safely by following these tips. Never use wire, metallic thread, or wire-reinforced strings. You could be electrocuted. Remember, even a safely built kite can cause a power outage if it gets caught in a power line. Always use paper, plastic, or wood to build kites. Never fly kites near power lines, in the path of traffic, aircrafts, or near highways. Always fly kites with a responsible adult in open areas, in dry weather, and with clear visibility. Never attempt to remove your kite from a power line. Always call BEL at 0800-235-2273 if your kite gets caught in a power line. Belize Electricity Limited. We care about your safety.
Power corrupts. And absolute power corrupts. Absolutely. On March 3rd, vote.
On Wednesday morning at 6, tune in to Channel 7 and Creme Radio and Television for Back to the Ballot. Our teams will bring the coverage from the field to your living room, from Corozal to Punta Gorda, San Pedro to Benque. Channel 7 and Creme, along with our partners, Plus TV, PGTV, and CTV3, have got you covered as Belize goes back to the ballots.
house.
Right now, Dad.
Damn it, Brian! I told you stop it! Can't you hear me? Are you deaf? Or you just being Time out. Your life is stressful, and it is easy to lose your patience. When you feel this is about to happen, take a time out. Harsh words are verbal violence and can be very harmful. They are not forgotten. Offering alternatives and communicating with your child is the best way to build real respect. I'm sorry, Ryan. That just had a rough day at work. Can you do something quiet?
Do you want a job?
That's more like it.
Are you kidding me? Mira lo que has hecho. Ahora sí te voy a mostrar. Time out. La mayoría del tiempo los niños no saben que están haciendo algo mal. Usando violencia solo les enseña que pegando es la única manera de solucionar las cosas. Esto solo empeorará la situación y dañará su relación. Tómese un tiempo y hable con sus hijos de lo que está bien y mal. Construyan una relación basada en entendimiento, respeto y amor.
Lissani, sweetie, it's a very nice drawing, but you know you shouldn't draw on walls. You know how hard it is to keep the whole scheme. We will wash it off, and from now on, we will draw only on paper. ¿Entiendes?
More than 100 days of new administration having elapsed, one of the government's proudest boasts is its COVID response and how effectively it has brought the skyrocketing numbers under control. And one of the key elements of that strategy has been rolling out enhanced testing and doing so quickly. Tens of thousands of rapid tests have been donated by counterparts such as Taiwan, which donated 15,000 tests in January, and PAHO, which donated almost 100,000 tests in early January. But government also bought tests from private supplier. 7 News has learned that a Belize-based company named SMVNF Investments sold the government $2 million worth of biosensor rapid tests. Now, this company is not known as a medical or pharmaceutical supplier, but it was contracted to supply 50,000 rapid tests. Or questioned to the PM whether this was put to tender or if it could have been sourced as a donation from one of the country's partners. And though it was a $2 million transaction, the PM and Minister of Finance seemed clueless about it.
They were paid by the Ministry of Finance, approved by the Contractor General, as said by the Minister. They were paid by the Ministry of Finance $2 million for 40,000 rapid tests. My question is, did the IDB offer your government to pay for these tests from an accredited international supplier rather than the co-chair of your Economic Recovery Task Force?
I can't answer the question because I don't know. Nobody from brought that to my attention. What I can tell you is that as soon as we got into government, we felt that we had to act rapidly.
The contract is for 50,000 tests, not 40,000 as stated in the question. We also asked the Minister of Health and Wellness about a $100,000 pharmaceutical supplies contract from a new company called Generex. We asked if it had been put out to tender.
We know a number of new medical suppliers have appeared, pharmaceutical suppliers have appeared in the smart screen system. We think of Generix, medical supplies, 4.5 miles to the Goldston Highway. I think they got $100,600 contract. There are many others I could list, but I'm just saying, when one sees a number of new vendors appear, indeed, it's indicative of any change in the government, but also pharmaceuticals, we know historically has been a source of not optimal behavior in public life where people have flatly hustled off these supplies contracts.
Yeah, well, I mean, that is part of what we are investigating currently at the ministry, and we want to make sure that whatever we purchase on behalf of the people of Belize are of the best possible quality and the best possible price. But yes, we are concerned about people who were selling to the ministry, and we are investigating on a very broad scale all of these positions.
But these new contracts that are going out to new vendors, are they being put out to tender?
I am not sure of this particular one, Jules, but I can tell you that in many cases we have had to use sole providers simply because of what we found at the ministry, and in some instances we had to act quickly to be able to have either the medicine or the testing kits available at the time. But that being said, everything else has gone to tender.
The Minister of Health and Wellness was on more solid footing when he laid out the revised curfew for Wednesday, which is the day for municipal elections.
On the third day of March 2021, there will be a curfew from 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. Thereafter, the curfew will begin at 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. and that will continue for a period of 30 days. In addition, on the 3rd of March 2021, it shall be prohibited to loiter in any public place or to congregate in any partisan group of more than 10 persons.
So those are the rules for Wednesday, and the Compo went over them today, telling the press that police will be on alert for those partisan supporters who will want to celebrate the outcome of the election.
Wednesday, March 3rd has been designated as the day for municipal election across the country. All the different towns and the two cities will be having elections to see who is going to represent those respective municipalities for the next 3 years. As a part of our mandate as the police, we will be out to ensure that the laws regarding elections are enforced in tandem with the Elections and Boundaries Commission. We know that we have the SI that came out on the 28th of February that takes effect as of today, March 1st. And under the new SI, it clearly outlined that while the curfew is from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m., on election day the curfew is from 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. And so again, the rationale behind that is to ensure that we will be able to contain those persons who may want to be in a celebratory mood after the results of the election has been announced. The police will be out in full force to ensure that there is no mass gathering. We do not want people to be in large numbers gathering all over the place, and we do not want people to be in large numbers celebrating. And so we call upon the general public to please adhere to the rules. The regulations remain in force in terms of social events, in terms of crowds, in terms of wearing of masks, and in terms of social distancing. Even as it relates to the polling stations and inside the polling stations, the polling areas and inside the polling stations, you will see that there will be markers there where people will be allowed to stand 6 feet from each other. And again, that is to ensure that we comply with the regulations. The same principle applies like what happened on general election day, where when you enter the polling station you may be asked to remove your mask for maybe 5 to 10 seconds, just so that the election clerk will be able to see that you are you are the same person whose picture appears on your voter's ID or whatever ID you're using to vote. So again, we want to work with the public, and we ask the public to work with us. At the end of the day, it is to ensure that after the elections are over, we do not have a large number of persons who would have been infected with the coronavirus.
Viewers will remember that after the results of the November 11, 2020 general elections started flooding in, PUP supporters started engaging in motorcades. The police will be looking to discourage that type of behavior. And while the police will be on the ground ensuring law and order is kept, CWIL is an organization ensuring that the women contesting the elections are safe from bullying. CWIL stands for Caribbean Women in Leadership, and their Belize chapter today congratulated the 46 women running in this year's municipal elections. 43 of those women are councillor candidates and 3 are mayoral candidates. It's an unprecedented number, which shows that more women are comfortable vying for leadership positions in the country. But with the position comes the dirty political games, and already one young PUP candidate was faced with cyberbullying. CWIL President Charmaine Saunders says that their organization will not stand for it and will continue lending support to these women despite the political parties they represent.
This year, we noted that there are 46 women across the 8 municipalities running for contesting elections for municipal elections. We also recognize that out of the 20 candidates, for the mayoral candidates, there are actually 3 women running for that position. And of the 188 council candidates, 43 are women. And so that number is actually representative of 36.4% of women running. During this time of campaigning, we recognized that there were some serious issues of violence of sorts for the women. And we recognize that this has become a very dominant feature in the campaigning. And we did not want to sit and not do anything about it. So, you know, our purpose is we really need to look at the gender balance and gender equality around the decision-making table. And what we did in our first instance, we're actually trying to put together a videos from all we invited all 43 women to participate in the video. It's an anti-cyberbullying video. So we want to try to convince women that this cyberbullying is not something that we want to participate in. And there was a very young female candidate who recently had experienced this, and CWIL stood in support. Once we get the videos from all the women that we've invited to participate, and we've invited all of them, there are some independent candidates as well, and we recognize that, so we included everyone. Once those videos are produced, we're going to start to air them. But our first step was to put together this collage, so we want to show that it's represented all the women that we are representing, that they're representing us, and that there's support from the CWIL organization. The issues that women are faced with in our country is above political parties, and CWIL organization ensures that we address that. There are really spoken and unspoken violence, or what we call incidents of cyberbullying that are occurring, and we want women to know that this organization seeks to address all these inequalities and gender imbalances that are occurring in our country.
Comprise 29% or 46 of the 160 candidates nominated for the 67 municipal seats which are up for election. 2 of the female mayoral candidates are contesting Belmopan. And while the women are making strides in politics, many women worldwide are still forced, defrauded, or coerced into menial labor. It's a hallmark of human trafficking, just a fancy term for what can be deemed modern-day slavery. Every year, millions of men, women, and children are trafficked worldwide, including right here in Belize. Tonight, ACP Maive tells us about the most recent case of a 16-year-old girl who'd been trafficked and made to live in a washroom by an expat couple living in Placencia.
On the 14th of January, members of the police's anti-trafficking in persons unit received an information from a 16-year-old minor, and as a result, an investigation was carried out in Placencia village, where the home of one Jonathan Blitz, a 41-year South African, and that of Ana Lucrecia Ponce, 35 years Guatemalan, were visited and a search were conducted, where they were detained pending the investigation. And during the course of the investigation, it led police to prefer charges against them on the 24th of February for the crime of trafficking in persons for the purpose of labor, exploitation, to wit, forced labor. What the minor actually reported that she was made to work for the two accused persons, where her documents were withheld and she was made to live in a washroom and was forced to work during the period. It's still an ongoing investigation, but both persons have appeared in court, and their matter was adjourned until the 22nd of June.
They say that the 16-year-old minor is the couple's only victim so far, but that, quote, they do not know if the investigation will unearth any other victim in relation to the accused. And on to tourism news. Over the weekend, the Minister of Tourism, Anthony Malla, along with the BTB, held a media mixer to update the nation on the state of the tourism industry. While the ministry has not been publishing numbers, it's safe to say that it's nothing like what pertained before COVID. But hope is not lost, as Malla explained what the industry stakeholders can look forward to in terms of financial assistance.
We have a small grants program that we want to begin to unleash within the next few weeks or so, and that is supported by the IDB, and we have somewhere around $2.5, maybe $3 million, whereby we can assist the small hotel and micro enterprises within the industry to get back on track to make some necessary investments as they need. We're continuously discussing new airlifts to the country, and so we're excited about a new route from Seattle and another route from Mexico, and hopefully those come online or on stream rather quickly. But we're also talking to the legacy operators who have been here for a while, and we're trying to get back as many routes as possible. We're not where we want to be when we had 25 flights on a Saturday, but we believe as long as we get the pandemic behind us, that there is a demand for Belize, that the brand is still good internationally, and that a lot of the airlines and our airline partners will want to come back. Another important thing that we've done is to introduce the gold standards, and we're rolling that out to some of those operators who weren't able to meet the gold standards. So we've created a system within the BTB to work with those properties and those operators to come online or come within the stream of the gold standards. We want to vaccinate at least 8,000 frontline tourism stakeholders, which means that we can signal to the world that we're a safe destination as we move and start to roll out the vaccination. So that will be important for us, and we've gotten the commitment from the Prime Minister that at least 8,000 tourism frontline stakeholders will be vaccinated.
The Prime Minister noted that with the amendment of the Central Bank Act, there will be additional funds of $50 million available through lending agencies.
So one of the things that we have been doing here at the Ministry of Finance is trying to be innovative and see how we can use the liquidity that is in the system right now. Because the banks have a lot of cash, but do not have enough people wanting to invest and wanting to borrow. And so that money is sitting there. What we have been doing is that we are amending the Act of the Central Bank. And we're doing that to be able to give the Central Bank more powers to be able to be more innovative, especially in a time of crisis like the one that we face. We have already amended the Central Bank Act. Well, we've passed it in the House, And now it is in the Senate. The Senate should have already passed it, but the last time when it was presented, a few senators were asking for more time because they wanted to study it and to better understand what is it that we're attempting to do. So we hope at the next Senate meeting that bill is going to be passed into law, and that then will allow the central bank to make $50 million available to invest into the productive sector. We're going to use $10 million from central government and $40 million from central bank. And that $50 million is going to be made available through the lending agencies, the National Bank of Belize, the DFC, or any other organization that would want to be able to have access to this money. But this money is going to be targeted. It's going to be targeted to industries and businesses that create jobs and create foreign currency. And so the tourism industry is going to be a priority of what we want to target, so that small businesses can make small loans, pay at longer term, lower interest rates, so that they could get back on their feet.
The Ministry of Tourism is also looking to upgrade infrastructure in Hopkins, Placencia, San Pedro and Kikoka. They will also be providing training to stakeholders for free. Minister Anthony Mola also gave news on the cruise tourism front. As we've been reporting, there are 3 proposed docking ports, one of which is expected to be completed early next year. Mola shared that Belize can expect cruise tourism to return to Belize in the upcoming months, but only with certain conditions in place.
Cruise tourism is important for the Belize district and for down south. Just recently, I had a discussion with Michelle Page and the FCCA, and initially they were looking at somewhere around October and November to begin cruising to Belize and in this part of the world. I have good news. They're now talking about the end of May and early June to begin cruising in this part again. And so we're working on the protocols with the Port Authority, the Ministry of Health, and all the other partners to ensure that we're a safe destination when cruising starts again. From my discussions with the FCCA, they're saying that it is going to be a phased approach. They're going to, for a short period, work in a bubble, and then they're going to roll out rather quickly. So maybe for a month or so, the cruise lines coming to Belize will operate in a bubble, meaning that they have to work with a specific tour operator and other destinations in the country, or sites in the country. But that won't last too long. I've signaled to them and I've articulated to them that we can't have so many people in the industry who have invested over time not being able to participate. And they understand that. So that is not going to last too long, this operation in a bubble.
As we told you, we really don't know how the tourism industry is performing since they have been tight-lipped on the numbers of tourists. But on Saturday, we got a glance. According to Mola, numbers for 2020 were steadily rising, a good sign since tourism flatlined for the first half of the year. But starting 2021, they've seen a decrease. He explained why.
Since October, it was trending up for the ending of 2020. Every month we saw growth in arrivals, but then Biden said what he said, and Trudeau said what he said, and then in terms of quarantining and not to travel, and the United States and Canada are some of our primary markets, and so we've seen a little lull in January and February. So just to give you our numbers, October we saw somewhere around 3,500, November about close to 5,000, December close to 10,000, and then the announcements from those leaders of government, and we saw it drop to like 6,000 or so, 7,000, and we're looking at 7,000 or so for February as well. But local tourism is still important for us and for a lot of the destinations throughout Belize, and so we're driving the message home for Easter and for summer, and so we're launching this domestic tourism or local tourism campaign so that we can continue to build on that until international travel bounces back to the level at where it used to be. A lot of stakeholders are still hurting. Actually, occupancy is way below where it normally is at this time. You're looking at somewhere around 10%. Usually at this time it's around 60 or so percent. But a lot of properties are still hurting. But as we get the vaccine and as our other international countries or other countries get their people vaccinated, we believe that we'll see an uptake in travel.
And while the minister was present to answer questions on Saturday, the Director of Tourism, Karen Bevans, was noticeably absent. Bevans is currently under investigation along with the trustees of the pension fund after reports surfaced that the former board dipped into the fund to pay employees' salaries. The trustees reportedly approved the use of close to $400,000 between July and November of 2020. The investigation is being headed by the current chairman, Evan Tillett. We spoke with him on Saturday, but details were scarce since he is awaiting legal advice.
The investigation is not only on the director, the investigation is of the pension plan and the monies that were used from the pension plan. Currently, we're in a position where we are getting legal advice on the matter, and as soon as we get that legal advice, then obviously we'll make a decision on the way forward. Well, basically, because it's under investigation and we're awaiting legal advice, then I cannot give you that information at this time. So once we get that information, we'll definitely share that with the media. The director is still working. The contract is still valid. And so we have a lot of things to achieve at the BTB in terms of rebuilding the industry. So the main focus for us right now is to bring the industry back to pre-COVID numbers and how we can continue to grow the industry beyond 2019 numbers.
The former chairman, Inier Gomez, is also being investigated. The first vaccines were rolled out this morning and the COVID numbers continue to be good. Over the weekend, there were no new COVID deaths to report. The death toll stands at 314. There were 20 new cases recorded from Saturday until today and 24 new recoveries. Information Officer Claudette Dakers-Norales has the full breakdown.
A total of 1,622 samples were tested. Out of this, 20 samples have resulted positive for COVID-19. There are 82 individuals newly under investigation. There are 24 new recoveries to report. Today, we also report that 4 infected persons are hospitalized. Unfortunately, 2 of these individuals are being treated at the intensive care unit. There were no new deaths to report. The cumulative report we are presenting is from March 2020 when we had our first case. The new total of active cases now stands at 137. These are those persons who have been confirmed and are within the time frame to transmit the virus. To date, 85,510 samples have been tested nationally. Out of this, 12,313 samples have resulted positive for COVID-19. A total of 314 deaths have been reported, but we are pleased to report that there are 11,860 total recoveries. The heat map shows the districts mostly affected. The greatest number of cases are seen in Stan Creek, Orangewa, and Corozal districts. Stan Creek district reported 9 new cases, with Dangriga responsible for 3 of those cases. Orangewa district reported 4 new cases, with San Pablo responsible for 2 of those cases. Corozal district reported 3 new cases, with Corozal Town responsible for all 3 cases. San Pedro Town reported 1 new case. The Cayo District reported 1 new case, and Toledo District had no new case.
And that's all we have for you for tonight. Thanks for watching With Your News. I'm Indira Craig. Remember that. You can read a full transcript of this newscast at 7newsbelize.com and see streaming video of it on our Facebook page. Remember now to wash your hands, wear a mask at all times in public, and to keep your social distance. The curfew starts at 10 tonight, so please make sure to stay inside. Join me back here tomorrow at 6, and until then,